All right. I am C.W. Mayberry of Torah Observant Apostolic in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Trying this for the second time this morning. Because of the weather and other things, we are now in the vehicle. Never intended to use this as a studio, but let's see what happens. This is a Through the Bible study. This will be lesson, I believe, 15. We are at Genesis chapter 30. And it reads, "And when Rachel saw that she bare Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister, and said unto Jacob, Give me children, else I die. And Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel, and he said, Am I in God's stead, who hath withheld from thee the fruit of the womb? And she said, Behold, my maid Bilhah, go in unto her, and she shall bear upon my knees, that I may also have children of her. And she gave him Bilhah her handmaid to wife, and Jacob went in unto her, and Bilhah conceived and bare Jacob a son. And Rachel said, God hath judged me, and hath also heard my voice, and hath given me a son. Therefore she called his name Dan. And Bilhah, Rachel's maid, conceived again, and bare Jacob a second son. And Rachel said, With great wrestlings have I wrestled with my sister, and I have prevailed. And she called his name Naphtali." You know, we're picking up things as we go along in this Bible study. I've got a core theme in mind, and that is the narrative you really need to know. But as we go through this, there's so much else to be said. Today you have any number of people espousing that the Bible supports multiple marriages. I don't believe the Bible does support that. I believe it was a reality of the culture of the time. And instead of correcting everything at once, Jehovah God dealt with those most important and pertinent things first and foremost. Multiple marriage was an invention of man because they didn't have John Deere. You couldn't go buy a tractor, so the best thing you can do is have sons. And the greatest way to have sons is to have multiple wives. And that's just basically it in a nutshell. Anyone doing that today, I personally believe, has just got a problem with lust. You can justify it any way you want to. You can argue it any way you want to. You're never going to change my mind. Adam had one wife. He was given one wife. If the intention were for multiple wives, then he would have had multiple ribs removed. The only other way for him to do that early on would be for him to have married his own offspring. There are just several problems with the entire concept. Not to mention the fact that, look at these two women, sisters married to this one man, and the enmity and the warfare and the striving that goes on between the two of them. That's human nature. No one wants to share that most intimate of relationships with anybody. That's just a reality, all right? Verse 9, "And when Leah saw that she had left bearing, she took Zilpah her maid, and gave her Jacob to wife." So Jacob's now got 4 wives. "And Zilpah, Leah's maid, bare Jacob a son. And Leah said, A troop cometh, and she called his name Gad. And Zilpah, Leah's maid, bare Jacob a second son. And Leah said, Happy am I, for the daughters will call me blessed. And she called his name Asher. And Reuben went in the days of the wheat harvest, and found mandrakes." So this oldest child is now old enough to go out and be gathering mandrakes if some time has passed. "And Reuben went in the days of wheat harvest, and found mandrakes in the field, and brought them unto his mother Leah. And then Rachel said unto Leah, Give me, I pray thee, thy son's mandrakes. And she said unto her, Is it a small matter that thou hast taken my husband, and wouldst thou take my son's mandrakes also? And Rachel said, Therefore he shall lie with me tonight, and for thy son's mandrakes." So this contention goes on. It just tells you that this is the nature of human beings. "And Jacob came out of the field in the evening, and Leah went out to meet him, and said, Thou must come in unto me, for surely I have hired thee with my son's mandrakes. And he lay with her that night. And God hearkened unto Leah, and she conceived, and bare Jacob a 5th son. And Leah said, God hath given me my hire, because I have given my maiden to my husband. And she called his name Issachar. And Leah conceived again, and bare Jacob the 6th son. And Leah said, God hath endued me with a good dowry. Now will my husband dwell with me, because I have borne him 6 sons. and she called his name Zebulun. Again, demonstrating the fact of human nature, and that the plural marriages are absolutely contrary to the way human beings are built. All right. Afterwards, she bare a daughter and called her name Dinah, and God remembered Rachel, and God hearkened to her and opened her womb. And she conceived and bare a son, and said, God hath taken away my reproach. And she called his name Joseph. Now this is the child that will be type of Messiah. This is the firstborn of this union that God originally intended. He is the promised child out of all of them. All right. And she called his name Joseph and said, the Lord, or Jehovah, shall add to me another son. Very good. And it came to pass, when Rachel had borne Joseph, that Jacob said unto Laban, send me away, that I may go into my own place and to my own country, and give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served thee, and let me go. For thou knowest my service which I have done thee. And Laban said unto him, I pray thee, if I have found favor in thy eyes, tarry, for I have learned by experience that Jehovah hath blessed me for thy sake. And he said, appoint me thy wages, and give them me. And he said unto him, thou knowest how I have served thee, and how thy cattle is with me, for it was little which thou hadst before I came, and now it is increased unto a multitude. And the Lord hath blessed thee since my coming, and now when shall I provide for my own house? And he said, what shall I give thee? And Jacob said, thou shalt not give me anything. If thou wilt do this thing for me, I will again feed and keep thy flock. And I will pass through all the flock today, removing from thence all the speckled and the spotted and the cattle, spotted cattle, and all the brown cattle among the sheep, and the spotted and the speckled among the goats, of which shall be mine hire. And when it says cattle, of course, they're not talking about cows, bovines. It's all smaller animals, sheep, goats, and the such. So shall my righteousness answer for me in time to come, when it shall come for my hire before thy face. So before this, I'm supposing that it was just a share, a portion. Now, which couldn't be distinguished because the sheep all pretty much look the same. So he decides to take these odd things, these difficult things. And I don't know a great deal about sheep, but I understand that it's easier to deal with a homogeneous type of wool, something that's all basically the same color, than it is things that are various colors, spotted, streaked, and it's just less desirous as far as a commodity or a product. But that's what he chooses to take, all right? And Laban said, behold, I would it might be according to thy word. And he removed that day the he-goats, and the ring-strake, and the spotted, and all the she-goats that were speckled and spotted, and every one that had some white in it, and all the brown among the sheep, gave them to the hand of his sons. And he set 3 days' journey betwixt himself and Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flocks. So Jacob's sons are now old enough to care for these sheep. He separates them out, takes them 3 days further away, probably west toward where he had come from originally. And his own sons are watching over these things while he's managing those of Laban. And Jacob took his rods and green poplar and hazel and chestnut tree, and peeled white strakes in them, and made them white appear, with which was his rods. And he set the rods which he had peeled before the flocks in the gutters and the watering troughs, and when their flocks came to drink, that they should conceive when they came to drink. And the flocks conceived before the rods, and brought forth cattle, ring-straked, speckled, and spotted. And Jacob did separate the lambs, and set the faces of the flocks toward the ring-strake, and the brown in the flock of Laban. And he put his own flocks by themselves, and put them not unto Laban's cattle. Now, what in the world's it all about with these stripped down pieces of lumber he's put in front of them? It's a little bit of a jump, but it's type and shadow of the gospel. It's type and shadow of spiritual reproduction. They're coming to bear underneath this emblem, this symbol of the atonement of Messiah. I wouldn't be too dogmatic about it, but it does seem to infer that. Verse 41, and it came to pass, whenever the stronger cattle did conceive, that Jacob laid the rods before the eyes of the cattle in the gutters, and they might conceive among the rods. But when the cattle were feeble, he put them not in. So the feebler were Laban's and the stronger Jacob's. And then this has got to be the intervention of God. What in the world does a stripped down, bare bark, striped piece of a tree limb produce anything? It's got to be the intervention of the Almighty. All right. And the man increased exceedingly and had much cattle and maidservants and men servants and camels and asses. Chapter 31, verse 1, and he heard the words of Laban's son, saying, Jacob hath taken away all that was our father's, and that which was our father's hath he gotten all his glory. So these sheep now are separated by what they look like. There's now a mark on them. There's now a designation. There is now a way to tell one from the other. And now that they have those that are separated unto Jacob are producing more and more and more. They're growing. This is separation. This is holiness. This is covenant. All right? We cannot be like everything else out there that claims to be of Messiah. If they don't keep the directions, if you don't keep the covenant, if you don't keep the commandments, you're some other. Period. All right. Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban, and behold, it was not toward him as before. And the Lord said unto Jacob, Return unto the lands of thy fathers, unto thy kindred, and I will be with thee. And Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field unto his flock, and said unto them, I see your father's countenance, that it is not toward me as before. But the God of my fathers hath been with me, and ye know that with all my power I have served your father, and your father hath deceived me, and changed my wages 10 times, and God suffered him not to hurt me. If I had said thus, the speckled shall be thy wages, then all the cattle bear speckled. And if I said thus, the ringstake shall be thy hire, then bear all the cattle ringstake. Thus God hath taken away the cattle of your father, and given them to me. This is a very sublime representation of the struggle that's going on right now. This is coming out of Egypt. This is the first Exodus. This is preparation of the second Exodus. The type and shadow is all embedded in these stories, all right, as subtle as it may seem. And it came to pass, verse 10, at that time that the cattle conceived, that I lifted up mine eyes and saw in a dream, and behold, the rams which leaped upon the cattle were ringstraked, speckled, and grizzled. And the angel of God spake unto me in a dream, saying, Jacob. And I said, Here I am. And he said, Lift up now thine eyes, and see, all the rams which leap upon the cattle are ringstraked, speckled, and grizzled. For I have seen all that Laban doth unto thee. So he got instruction. That's where he got this idea from. All right. And I am the God of Bethel, where thou anointest the pillar. And Bethel is that place where he first experienced God for himself. And Jehovah God has been watching him all along, walking with him. He made covenant with him in that place, a very simple covenant, but covenant beyond what he had had. And he kept it, and God kept it as well. All right? And that's a good word for you and me. 13, I am the God of Bethel, where thou anointest the pillar, and where thou vowest a vow unto me. Now arise, get thee out of this land, and return to the land of thy kindred. And Rachel and Leah answered and said unto him, Is there yet any portion or inheritance for us in our father's house? We might as well go. Things have turned that our father doesn't want to have anything to do with us. He doesn't regard us more than he does anyone else. There's no sense in us staying here. All right. Are we not counted with him strangers? For he hath sold us, and hath quite devoured also our money. For all the riches which God hath taken from our father, that is ours and our children's. Now then, whatsoever God hath said unto thee, do. Verse 17. Then Jacob arose and set his sons and wives upon camels, and he carried away all his cattle and his goods which he had gotten. Because they're 3 days away to begin with. All right. Which he had gotten in Padanaram, for to go to Isaac his father in the land of Canaan. And Laban went to shear his sheep, and Rachel had stolen the images that were in her father's. So she took the household idols. Why? It doesn't say. Is she actually worshiping these things? Does she think that by depriving her father of them, that she's going to get the advantage of him and render him powerless? We don't get an answer to that. But we do get an answer that you really need to leave everything alone. Okay, there's only one God to serve. There's only one God to fear. Only one God to respect. Pieces of rocks carved ever so cleverly still are not God. All right. Verse 20, and Jacob stole away unawares to Laban the Syrian, in that he told him not that he fled. So he fled with all that he had, and he rose up and passed over the river and set his face toward Mount Gilead. And it was told Laban on the third day that Jacob was fled. There's that third day again. And he took his brethren with him and pursued him 7 days' journey. It takes 7 days to consecrate anything. And they overtook him in Mount Gilead. And God came to Laban the Syrian in a dream by night and said unto him, Take heed that thou speak not unto Jacob either good or bad. Then Laban overtook him. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the mount, and Laban was in his brethren pitched in the Mount of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, What hast thou done, that thou hast stolen away unawares to me, and carried away my daughters as captives taken with the sword? Wherefore dost thou flee away secretly, and steal away from me, and didst not tell me, that I might have sent thee away with mirth? Don't bet on it. Sent thee away with mirth, and with songs, and with tabret, and with harp. And hast thou suffered me to kiss my sons and daughters? Thou hast now done foolishly in so doing. And it is in the power of my hand to do you hurt, but the God of your father spake to me yesternight, saying, Take heed that thou speakest not to Jacob either good or bad. This is a very foolish man. He's already been warned of God either to speak good or evil, and he's pushing the envelope. All right, even saying that he could do it, but he won't. The fact of the matter is, he can't. God begins to speak to you, people aren't going to bring in you harm. They can huff and they can puff, but they are not going to blow your house down. If you are in relationship, legal covenant relationship with the God of the Bible, of creation, you are always going to be secure until he gathers you unto himself by his will and his method. All right. And now, though thou wouldest needs be gone, because thou sore longest after thy father's house, yet wherefore hast thou stolen my gods? So he's looking for his stone gods, his household god. And Jacob answered and said to Laban, Because I was afraid, for I said, Peradventure thou wouldest take by force thy daughters from me. With whomsoever thou findest thy gods, let him not live before our brethren. Discern thou what is thine with me, and take it with thee. For Jacob knew not that Rachel had stolen them. And back to the question as to why. There's no power in them. Does she think she's trying to deprive him of the power? Or is she just is she clinging to something that once was? Has she not fully discharged this from her heart and her mind? It's a good question. And Laban went into Jacob's tent, into Leah's tent, into the two maidservants' tent, but he found them not. Then when he went out to Leah's tent and entered into Rachel's tent, now Rachel had taken the image and put them in the camel's furniture and sat upon them. And Laban searched all the tent and found them not. So now she's sitting on his gods. Think about it. And she said to her father, Let it not displease my lord that I cannot rise up before thee, for the custom of women is upon me. And he searched, but found not the images. And Jacob was wroth and chode with Laban. And Jacob answered and said to Laban, What is my trespass? What is my sin, that thou hast so haughtily pursued after me? Whereas thou hast searched all my stuff, what hast thou found of thy household stuff? Set it before me and my brethren and thy brethren, and they may judge betwixt us. This 20 years have I been with thee. You understand his father was supposed to die? That's what the whole thing about the birthright was about, and the blessing. And 20 years later, you're going to find out the old man's still alive. That was the hand of God separating these people. All right. This 20 years have I been with thee, and the ewes and the she-goats have not cast their young, and the rams of the flock have I not eaten. That which was torn of beast I brought not unto thee. I bear the loss of it, and of my hand didst thou require it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. Thus I was in the day, the drought consumed me, and the frost by night, and my sleep departed from me. So I've done everything I can to see that you profit. I took every loss unto myself. I didn't pass it on to you. Anything that was stolen was my responsibility. In the heat of the day, in the cold of the night, in sleeplessness, I watched over what you had. This is a man of some integrity. All right. Thus have I been 20 years in thy house, and I served thee 14 years for thy 2 daughters, and 6 years for thy cattle, and thou hast changed my wages 10 times. Except the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac had been with me, surely thou hadst sent me away now empty. God has seen my affliction and my labor of my hands, and rebuked thee yesternight. Serve God. Don't worry about the circumstances, and don't try to justify yourself. Don't try to fix it yourself. Be the man or the woman of God you're supposed to be, and let Him keep the books. I assure you, Jehovah God is a soldier. He's a healer. He's an architect. He's a planner, and He is also a bookkeeper. He knows precisely what you owed, and it will be paid back to you. Perhaps not in your time, but it will be paid back. And Laban answered and said unto Jacob, These are my daughters, and these children are my children, and these cattle are my cattle, and all that thou seest is mine. And what can I do this day unto thee, my daughters, or unto the children which they have borne? Now therefore come thou, let us make a covenant. Yeah, he's big on covenants now. And I and thou, and let it be for a witness between me and thee. And Jacob took a stone and set it up for a pillar. And Jacob said unto his brethren, Gather stones. And they took stones and made an heap. And they did eat there upon the heap. And Laban called it, I am not even going to try and pronounce that. Well, maybe I will. Jegar Shah U Dathaya. Well, you got it. Congratulations to you. All right. And Laban said, This heap is a witness between me and this day. Therefore was the name of the place called Galeed. And Mizpah, for he said, The Lord watch between me and thee. When we are absent one from another. If thou shalt afflict my daughters, or if thou shalt take other wives beside my daughters, no man is with us. See, God is witness betwixt thee and me. And Laban said to Jacob, Behold the heap, and behold this pillar which I have cast betwixt me and thee. So it's a landmark. This is where we're leaving from, and we're not going back. We're not passing over this going backwards. Things happen in your life, God takes them away. Leave them there. Don't go back and pick them up. Don't go revisit those things. This heap be a witness, of this pillar be a witness. This heap be a witness, and this pillar be a witness, that I will not pass over this heap to thee, and thou shalt not pass over this heap unto this pillar unto me for harm. For the God of Abraham, the God of Nahor, the God of the father judge of their father, judge betwixt us. And Jacob sware, and by the fear of his father Isaac. And Jacob offered sacrifice upon the mount, and called his brethren to eat bread, and they did eat bread, and tarried all night in the mount. And early in the morning Laban rose up and kissed his sons and his daughters, and blessed them. And Laban departed and returned unto his place. And that will leave us going into chapter 32. Trying to keep these as short as possible. There doesn't seem to be a great deal there until you start looking at the patterns. Okay, Laban's the type of the Antichrist. The land of the land that living in is Syria. It's a captive place. It's not where they're supposed to be. They're laboring under a system that's not fair. They're constantly being robbed, which is what the monetary system of the world economies do today. No matter what nation you're living in, you're doing business in a currency that is owned and regulated by the government. It typically is illegal to trade in any other currency. It's a federal offense in the United States of America. The system is manipulated basically so that you are not going to get ahead, so that you're not going to become financially wealthy enough and powerful enough to really do anything to upset the equilibrium that has been established artificially. And I'm not going to make that any plainer than that, but that's the way it is. If you think you're not living in a captive situation, try existing outside the parameters. Try trading with some currency other than the currency that is native to the land you're in. Try owning property without giving some government official to sign off on it. Try getting a child born without someone knocking at your door wanting to register that child, wanting that child in the public school system, any number of other things that you cannot do. You can't go anywhere on this planet right now, as far as I know, and go live free and independent of any government. It's not possible. It's not possible because it's all one united system. The politicians are all united. The government systems are all united. The economies are united. The religion is united. When you start digging into it, if you don't think that's true, you've not had a hard look at it. But the day is coming when all that's going to change. The day is going to come when we're going to be free of this system, and we're going to have a system that is just and fair and righteous. But in order for that to happen, you're going to have to live in covenant with the God that originally created this world and made man. Because when he takes it all back, he's going to separate his from those that are not. And if you're on the wrong side of that line, I'm sorry, but the consequences are eternal. I would open the book and begin to read it yourself. I would begin to pray. I've not gotten a lot of comment on these videos as of yet. Perhaps that's the way I'm presenting them. Perhaps that's the way I'm marketing them. If I can use that word, I don't know. I'm not looking for church people. We're not looking for people who've already got it all figured out or think they've got it all figured out either way. We're looking for people who are looking for a supernatural reality, because when I speak in the name of Jehovah, in the name of Yeshua, my God shows up on behalf of people with sincere hearts that want real answers. If you know it all, then go spread it somewhere. Go out and teach it. I don't need your commentaries. If I can help you, that's why I'm putting these things out here. This is going to be on Facebook. I'm toying with the idea of putting this on Patreon. Not to make money off of it, but to selectively control people who have access to it and lead them into things that are deeper than this, basically. Because you'd be surprised how shallow people are. They will look over your shoulder all day long, but if you ask them for $1, and suddenly the prices become far too high. But we'll think about that and see what goes. In the name of Yeshua, great and mighty God, touch every soul that has seen this today. Touch everyone that will see it in the future. Cause this thing to break out and to stand as an ongoing resource to people. Let the life that is in it flow from it every time someone touches it, God, and begins to play this thing. In the name of Yeshua Messiah. Amen and amen. And we'll see you next time. Here comes the finger.